right, and so it's a good afternoon to you right here from our studios in the Grand House adjacent the Holy Spirit Cathedral. You're watching the state, and we are so excited to have it to your screens again. It's midweek, and so we hope that you are going to enjoy today's episode as well. My name is Anita. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll introduce what we intend discussing, and of course we'll go back to the screens and then do some briefs on what we'll be discussing later this afternoon. This program is probably brought to you by the Christian Service University.
The Christian Service University, a fully chartered private university in Ghana, is inviting applications for admission. Undergraduate programs include BSc Nursing and Midwifery, Computer Science, Information Technology, Bachelor of Business Administration, BA Communication Studies, Planning and Social Development, and Theology with Administration. Postgraduate programs include MSc in Accounting and Finance, Monitoring and Evaluation, Corporate Planning and Governance. We have MA MPhil Communication Studies, MA Christian Ministry with Management, Event Management, MPhil English and Mathematics Education. With quality, faculty and state-of-the-art facilities, we blend academic work with entrepreneurial mindset in all our programs. For more information, please call 0246 275375, 0240 154825, or 0244 596603, or visit our website www.csuc.edu.gh. CSU is located at Odenaho Kwadaso on the Kumasi-Obuasi Road, 100 meters off Star Junction. Choose CSU today to secure the future of Africa.
And to make him better known. That's
Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us right here on the state. Well, it's time for us to bring you some briefs on what we intend discussing when we later sit down. But today is all about the school feeding program. And I know that one way or the other you've heard about this particular thing and some challenges that are associated with it, despite the fact that this particular initiative was intended to serve a certain purpose. But the Ghana School Feeding Program was introduced in the year 2005, about some 20 years ago, by the then President John Agyekum-Kufuor's administration, and so that was when this program started. The program's aim was to provide meals to students in public schools, and so if you have a child or if you know someone attending a public school, this was why the program was initiated, so that the children can sit in the classroom and learn as well. Now, the school feeding program has been hailed for improving school attendance and enrollment, and so usually we didn't have a lot of people in school, but because of this program there was some form of improvement in the enrollment and attendance of basic school, now boosting beneficiaries' health and their nutrition. The school feeding program has, however, faced significant challenges over the years. Yes, it's been 20 years, and so there is no program, we would say, without any shortages or any challenges so far. And so we'll bring you some of the challenges. Now, the concerns have been raised with the quality, the quantity, and the consistency of the food served. Funding has also been a major challenge of the program, with government as the main source of the funding, and so the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection would have to issue some statements and all that. It goes through the Finance Ministry. The monies, whether it comes periodically or not, that is what we intend discussing. Now, payments of caterers on the school feeding program have often been in arrears, prompting protests, and so sometimes the caterers would also have to complain. In fact, at her vetting on Wednesday, Gender, Children and Social Protection Minister Designate Agnes Namu-Molate promised to resolve the payments delays faced by the caterers under this program. Earlier last week, President Mahama directed the release of emergency food stored in warehouses to address concerns of food shortages in some senior high schools by the Conference of Heads of Assisted Secondary Schools, CHAS. And so last week, we also heard about the secondary schools facing some food shortages. Now, the Minister Designate for Agriculture, 𝗟𝗜𝗩𝗘 Opoku, has subsequently announced government's intention to let all secondary schools in the country establish farms to ensure food sufficiency. To some, these interventions may be inadequate in dealing with the challenges facing the school feeding program. What concrete steps should be taken to deal decisively with the challenges confronting the Ghana school feeding program? Well, we'll explore further and find out some of the solutions we could use to curb this particular menace. The school feeding program is indeed one of the best interventions we could have so far, so that most of our children will sit in the classrooms and learn. Basic education is really, really important to us as a people and as a nation. Thank you so much for joining us on W Breeze. So go back. When we come back, we'll introduce our guests as well as our topic for the afternoon. Sorry, not sure.
Wake up to a purposeful day.
Get ready for a transformational morning experience.
Sorena Shrine is here to build our spirituality, mental and physical well-being.
Through positive, inspiring actions and stories.
We bring you exciting activities and conversations that develop us as a people and as a nation.
We take a look at the trending issues in Ghana and the rest of the world.
And we also review the impacting stories from our local newspapers.
Every morning, we bring you stories of hope, change, and renewal.
We empower you through the Word of God and provoke you to live the purposeful life destined for you.
Join us, Anita Quarcoo
and the Reverend Ajika Vincent Agbamanya, Monday to Friday from 5:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. as we take you on an inspiring journey, live and exclusively on WTV.
You may also join us on Facebook at WTV Ghana and on YouTube at Wesleyan TV Ghana.
Sorry, not Shrine.
Wake up to a purposeful day.
Sorena Shrine is brought to you by
Danwell Insurance, Multi-Credit Savings and Loans,
and the Methodist University Ghana.
All right, and so welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us on The State. My name is Anita. Well, today we are discussing the Ghana school feeding program, weighing in on the food shortage, concerns, and remedies available to us as a people. Now, I've been joined in the studio by Dr. 𝗟𝗜𝗙, who is a national coordinator, Religious Bodies Network, and environment and climate change. And so we will be discussing this with him, and I will be joined online by Oberon Jalel Odum, who is a change facilitator and diversity as well as inclusion advocate. And so these two gentlemen would help us know what the school feeding program is all about and some of the remedies we can have when we mention the challenges later. And so I would urge you to sit behind your television set and listen. And you can also contribute on all our social media platforms by sending in some comments and some contributions to us. On Facebook is WTV Ghana, and on YouTube is Westland Television Ghana. So do well to leave us a comment right there. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay. All right. Ms. Odum, good morning. Good afternoon, sorry. Hello, Mr. Odum. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, madam.
Thank you so much for joining us.
And good afternoon to all the listeners and viewers.
Thank you. Good afternoon to you. But before we go straight to our topic, just say hello to one or two viewers who you know are watching, and then we can continue.
All right, so I say hello to my constituents, people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and particularly my organization, Inclusion Ghana, and also to the CSO platform for social protection that I also represent.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, sir. Thank you so much. Doc, please say hello to our viewers and then you're good to go.
Okay, hello. I'll say hello to my wife. I hope she's watching, and my children.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. But let's come to you, Doc. What is your assessment of the Ghana school feeding program?
The Ghana school feeding program is a laudable initiative.
Okay.
But certainly with such a program running nationally, we would have some few challenges after, usually because of our political system. After a change of government, there certainly will be a lukewarm approach towards it, because with such a program, like, it should be consistently rising and then getting to a point of excellence. But with this kind of up down approach to our politics, it creates some stress in such laudable programs. But the program is a yes, and perfect program.
It's been 20 years since its inception, and didn't we anticipate any of these challenges that you're talking about?
I think initiators anticipated, but as I said, you see, we have negatively brushed down our positive policies with change of government, inconsistencies, because it was Party A that started, Party B comes and approach to it will be a bit lukewarm, then it goes down, then another party comes. So this is because even a human being, at age 20 you have passed through adolescence and you should be maturing. So at this stage I think our school feeding program should be very matured, and then we should be reaping rather from them now than they becoming crippled, and then there should be order from the president to scrape out all leftover food in warehouses to support. I don't think we should be at this stage by now.
Interesting. Ms. Audum, now what will be your assessment of the school feeding program since its inception in 2005?
Well, I would say that the school feeding program, has, supported many basic schools, and as well many pupils who have gone through school. Generally, it's also targeted at, eliminating poverty and making sure that regardless of, your background, you are able to go to school. If you're hungry, it shouldn't take you out of school. So I think that in terms of getting many children in school, it has impacted in that space. However, I think that it's fraught with many, different challenges. I.e., we look at it from the point of politics. You will notice that in terms of, those who, are caterers, or who are identified as caterers, or who basically do the cooking, basically are people who are, part of, the political, system, or basically are, the women organizers of, that particular government in, that is ruling. And so a lot of times people take things for granted, and because of the same reasons, there are people who are supposed to be cooking on cooking days. They are not doing it, and still some people get paid even though they are not cooking and things like that. And then talking about quality of food, it's not been the best. Of course, some people are doing the genuine things of cooking, the right things. But because this is mass cooking for, a mass group of people don't take care to, do all the right things. And so there are many challenges, but I say, that the impact of the school feeding program has been good. We can only talk about the challenges so that it gets improved.
You mentioned the fact that these contracts are given to the women organizers of these political parties, and so sometimes the quality and everything. Are we to say that these people are not in the right position to cook for these children?
Certainly, they are. What I am basically saying is that when we don't take care to give things to people who deserve it, generally we get into some of these issues. We don't want to always say that, because it's politically colored, and so people won't do the right thing. But I think that the amount of money that we use, for the Ghana School Feeding Program, the cooking that is done for public schools, it is 1 cedis, 50 pesos now. It used to be 90 pesos. It came to 1 cedi, 20 pesos. And so if it is 1 cedi, 50 pesos, ask yourself, how much, can, a caterer do in terms of cooking 1 cedi, 50 pesos food for a person? In this day and age, that is quite difficult. And so they will do all manner of things to be able to do that. And then again, talking about the fact that releases of, payments to these caterers do not happen on time, and because they are part of the political system, they have to be keeping on and making sure that they can cook something. So you can see that the general quality, especially because things are not, being improved in terms of payment, in terms of, amount of money that is allocated to one person and at significant others, there's always challenges. So I would say that obviously, if we look at it much more in terms of trying to improve the system, it also means that if a caterer is doing the wrong thing, and we are all women organizers, obviously, I can only speak for a while, but I cannot expose, my colleague, who is part of us. Otherwise, the system is going to break down. And so we are saying that it is important that we get the right people cooking. We also make sure that the quality and everything, there's a very systemic monitoring in the process to make sure that the quality and things that are being done regarding the food for these children have high quality, and that's where I'm coming from.
All right, Ms. Odom, we'll come back to you. You mentioned the figures, the amount per student, and so I'll come back to you, and then you'd explain better for us to understand this. But over to you, Doc. What have been the benefits of the Ghana School Feeding Program that you have noticed so far?
Benefit, as he rightly said, it gave the opportunity for persons who might not be able to eat. Money, basic, like money to school for feeding. We had the privilege of coming to class and then being fed at least one hot meal a day. And that is very good. It's helped to mitigate malnutrition in a way, and then assisted the home. Because at least this guy goes to school, and then his portion of food for the table in the afternoon is skipped for the evening. So it was a positive. It played a major role in family bonding and all those things, yes.
Interesting one. Now let's look at the amount per head. It used to be 98 pesos, and then some 20 pesos were added to it. It became about 1 cedi, 20 pesos. And so in the space of about from 2005 to 2024, I would say that we've had some significant changes. But is the money enough per head? No.
150 per head is not enough. Although they will say the economics of scale, when numbers are many, it works in. But let's assume that a child is supposed to have some egg. What's the price of an egg? And we are expecting that each caterer provides an egg on each meal. And currently, I think an egg is almost the 150 or 2 cedis. Yeah. So it means that amount cannot afford an egg for a child. So that already is a defeatist stand. So I think that amount should be reviewed upwardly, positively, because this is no figure at all that we can play with.
With your little background on agric, would you say that this is compromising?
It's not a little background. I'm an agriculturist, a trained agriculturist.
Yes, sorry about that. But would you say that the nutritional value that we expect the children to have, especially as young as they are, we know that they are supposed to get some form of nutrition to be able to for their whole body formation. Is it enough? The 1 cedi 50 pesos?
It is not enough. That is why I just use the egg. Because at least we know if you have carbohydrates and an egg on it, it supplements a lot of diet. Yes. But so if you can afford, that means technically the whole amount is half an egg.
Okay.
Half an egg. So what would be the benefit to the nutritional benefit to the child? It's only carbohydrates that they will be fed on.
Interesting one. Ms. Odun, let's come back to you. The 1 cedi 50 pesos we are talking about, in July 2024, one of the caterers of the Ghana School Feeding Program indicated that they are even taxed. There's some tax that is taken out of that 1 cedi 50 pesos. And so it brings us to about 1 cedi 20 pesos. That means that 30 pesos is taken out of that amount. If Auntie Adjoa is saying this and explaining that it's frustrating to them, are we giving these children the nutritional value they need to be able to sit in the classrooms and for their bodies to form properly?
Obviously, this is the biggest worry for which we are saying it's quite challenging to think about, a situation like this. Because, like my colleague panel, member said, how much is an egg? And you are thinking about providing a nutritious food, and the wording is nutritious food. How would a child get such food at that kind of amount? Obviously, it's woefully inadequate. And I guess in as much as the caterers want to do the right thing, they will be forced to do other things in order to keep up. And this is the greatest challenge that we have. And if you look at, the situation that we have at hand, we have situations where, caterers don't even cook on some particular days. Of course, we've heard the stories that, in some places, and especially, how to reach places where, you don't get to see monitoring being done and things like that. People don't cook, they still get their money, being paid. And so this is very worrying. But 1 cedi 20 pesos, 2023, 2024 years, it is very worrying situation. And I think that we need to talk more about the amount and also talk about the quality. And I'm hoping that now that World Bank wants to put in place some more strengthened system, we may be able to get very important monitoring reports that can help us improve some of this system.
Interesting one. We take a look at the storage of these foods, because the school feeding caterers would have to get these monies in bulk for probably a long or a short-term period. And so they will go to the markets, they will get the food items, and then they have to store it so that they can be able to produce or prepare the foods for these children on daily basis or on weekly basis. Let's look at the infrastructure. Let's look at the storage of these foods, because quite recently we got a story or a report suggested that some people went around to check on these caterers, and they found out that some of the condo that the caterers were using had some moldy stuff on it. The stew for the jollof was also not in good shape and all that. Now, let's take a look at the infrastructure aspect of it.
Certainly. So you are looking at a situation where the caterer is thinking about how to save on transport costs, so that they don't get to go to market all the time. And so obviously they'll buy large amounts of things to come and store them. Obviously things that don't get stored well obviously will have problems. And so all the things that you have said are things that we have picked up from the field. Sometimes some of the things decaying or in very bad, taste, and yet this is the same food that is cooked for the children. When you go to the northern regions, I mean, I can tell you on authority that there are places where some foods are cooked for the children, and you can tell. I mean, this food, there's no way if they gave it to you yourself, or anyone who was cooking was going to eat it, but the children are eating it, and so it's very, very, sad. And you can see something you're calling soup, but you can tell that this is full of water and things like that. I mean, the stories are a lot, but it's very worrying. And so if you have a breaking story that, I mean, there's food shortage, in schools, and especially the free senior high school also has its own, feeding policy.
Yep.
And you look at that situation and you see, that one is also considering 7 cities, 50 pesos for 3-day meal.
Yeah.
And these are grown-ups, adults, for goodness sake. Even when you're taking your child to school, how much would you give your child for? And then these are adults who are going to school and they are being fed 3 times a day. What's going to happen? It's worrying. We need to sit down and discuss this, very thoroughly, and then figure out what works and what does not work.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, Doc. Over to you. What would you say as an agric person? Why are food prices always on the high?
Food prices are always on the high.
Okay.
I would say because of our attitude towards food production.
Okay.
Our attitude towards food production.
What is wrong with the attitude?
Recently, I had a problem with a school.
Okay.
Where weeding was used as a punishment, and I became very violent towards them. That is extremely and a big insult to we as agriculturists, because the cutlass is an important tool in agriculture.
Okay.
So where you teach the child that holding the cutlass to weed is punishment, any time in the child's life, he regards the holding of the cutlass to do weeding as a punishment.
Okay.
And it's a serious incentive. So you get this engraved on the brain of the child, and forever the child don't want to go into agriculture. Or if going to agriculture, the child will prefer animal breeding than to agronomy.
So would you side with the agric minister designate, stating that most of the schools would have to go through farming so that they can?
When I heard it, I said, "Oh, God bless Ghana for providing us with somebody with this kind of reasoning."
Okay.
Yes, because it has a lot of benefits, and it will change the psyche of our students before they come out. They get to know. It has so many great benefits for our system. I mean, social, emotional health, well-being, and even environmental benefits for them.
Okay.
This backyard gardening that they are coming to introduce, one, it's long overdue.
Okay.
It's long overdue. Number two, it's not going to be discriminatory, and it's going to create some form of competition among the schools.
Okay.
You have a large compound, you are staying in an area where any chief that a school approaches and says he wants land for farming to feed the children, who wholeheartedly give it out. So it will create a certain kind of competition among schools, because your colleague.
Where will the competition come in? Because most of the secondary schools,
competition.
Most of the secondary schools do not have agric as a course.
Yes, but in this case, you are not running the farming gardening as a course.
Okay.
It's like a co-curricular activity. Where the children go and assist this plan. You see, if let's assume a school of 1,000 children,
okay,
and they are to cultivate, say, 100 acres of land, each student might be managing a very small space. And to be effective, because among the children, there will be that competition, and among the schools, there will be that competition. So it's a strategic, a wise, and a way of creating that kind of context among our children and then our schools. It will gradually affect the whole society, because you come out with this psyche that I'm learning economics, but if I do a little exercising with the ground, I get some output, and this output can reduce my food cost. Because if they do vegetables, they do fruits and others. You buy fruits, look at the cost of fruits now in town. You are getting the free in your backyard, or you do some vegetables, you can pluck some fresh vegetables, lettuce, carrots and things, and slice for something to cook. I think these reduce the market cost. So it's a very positive suggestion, and I pray he's able to implement it well. It is a game changer for Ghana.
So in implementing this, aren't we going to put in a lot of cost? Because one, we have to employ farm hands, because most of these children do not even know what agric is in the first place. Experts should come in, they'll have to get the seedlings, they'll have to get water. Utility would also go on the rise a little.
Certainly.
Okay.
Initially, there will be this teething, there will be some teething problems.
Okay.
But just, it needs to take off. And most schools have agricultural, at least in every school there will be one tutor who has some background in agriculture, or little studied agriculture somewhere. So these things will not involve a lot of expenses. Even there are schools which have areas where they can dam and get some water to even do dry season farming. So it's a positive thing. It is a very positive thing. And when it takes off, you will see how it will roll out. A lot will come out of this. And you see, this then reduces the cost on the government.
Okay.
And if a government assists a school, maybe let's assume 1,000 cedis, and the following year you are able to. Let me give you a typical example.
Okay.
Well, I met with the coordinators of the Methodist Church, the 1,000 coordinators, and I told them that each coordinator should become an important person in the diocese. What strategy did I give them? I said, do what do we call it? Seedlings. To support the Green Ghana program. You buy a packet of about 5,000 seeds for 15 cedis. And now with this ice sachet water,
the pure water sachets,
the sachets, the empty ones, is now a nuisance. And you can slice them, feed them with black soil, and then plant them. So if you do 5,000, and even one is costing 2 cedis, in 3 months, you are talking about getting 10,000 cedis out of the 15 cedis. So you can imagine the extent of gain. So that is the picture that agriculture gives.
Okay.
That's the picture that agriculture gives. You know, I have a farm, and I was buying my own feed. And a friend asked, why do you buy feed when you teach people how to prepare feed? So I had to get some meal and things, and I started producing my own feed. Feed cost reduced by up to about 45%. So this is what will happen in the schools if they even go into integrated farming, where they have crops, they have the land, they have livestock. The livestock feed is going to feed the crops as manure. Then the crops, you cut them, and then the stems and others will be used to feed the livestock when you have taken the fruits and then the...
All right. Thank you so much. I like this idea. But Mr. Odum, the agriculture minister designator stated that most of the secondary schools would have to go into farming so that they can feed their own selves. If not feeding themselves 100%, they can do at least some percentage, and then government would also take care of the rest. So what do you think about this particular initiative?
I'm afraid that I have a different opinion about that.
Okay.
I think that the primary aim of students being in school is to focus on their education, and so if we are not careful, students will be drifted to something else, and so I'm a little bit concerned that that is the position of the agric minister. But I have to say that there have been other initiatives in the past, that basically was contributing to the Ghana School Feeding Program. For instance, as part of the policy of the Ghana School Feeding Program, one of the requirements is that food is cultivated, or food that is purchased from the community that, the caterers, cook in. So the assumption is that, every particular community may have some farm produce where, the caterer can, buy their food produce from. As well, there was this whole thing of planting for food and jobs. If you recall the Nana Akufo-Addo's, government's policy of planting food and, for jobs and things like that. The idea of it was to make sure that we are planting food that we will consume. And because government was invested in that, it meant that government can equally purchase these, foodstuffs, at more reasonable prices and be able to feed the schools that we have, and as well as feed, the communities that we have. And so it's a bit worrying to hear that the Agri Minister want to have some different focus for some of these students, and I think that it can create a problem, and it will be much more academic problem. So I rather wish that the student focus on their schooling. If there's any cultivation around the school, it is great, but I do not think that we want to get the students' involvement in this particular, situation. So those are my thoughts on the Agric Minister's
question. So briefly, how about the schools that are offering Agric as a course? Because some of these students already have their extracurricular activities, doing some small farmings at the background and all that.
I think that is all right. I mean, if you're having students who are great students who are having their practicum, and learning, more or less on the job, having, some small backyard farming, that would support. It cannot actually feed the school. It could support or supplement, some of these things, but then it cannot be their occupation. But if it is part of their practicum, then it is supporting the school. I think that is great. So that's how I look at it. I won't look at it as a full-blown, Agric. We are focusing on Agric, in the senior high school. It can be a bit worrying.
Okay, so after the break, we'll come back to you, and then we'll discuss how to get some form of secured funding for this particular program, so that our children will be able to sit in the schools, and then teaching and learning could also go on. But viewers, we've been discussing the Ghana School Feeding Program. We've been talking about the challenges and what we think could be the remedies to these particular challenges. Well, the Agric Minister Designate has also made a statement. One of my guests is supporting that. The other guest is also having his own thoughts on this particular thing. But we are going for a quick break. When we come back, we'll delve deeper into some of the funding issues and what we think could be also the remedy. Thank you so much.
The Christian Service University, a fully chartered private university in Ghana, is inviting applications for admission. Undergraduate programs include BSc Nursing and Midwifery, Computer Science, Information Technology, Bachelor of Business Administration, BA Communication Studies, Planning and Social Development, and Theology with Administration. Postgraduate programs include MSc in Accounting and Finance, Monitoring and Evaluation, Corporate Planning and Governance. We have MA, MPhil Communication Studies, MA Christian Ministry with Management, Event Management, MPhil English and Mathematics Education. With quality faculty and state-of-the-art facilities, we blend academic work with entrepreneurial mindset in all our programs. For more information, please call 0246 275375, 0240 154825 or 0244 596603 or visit our website www.csuc.edu.gh. CSU is located at Odenaho Kwadaso on the Kumasi Obuasi Road, 100 meters off Star Junction. Choose CSU today to secure the future of Africa.
And to make him better known.
We are young but wise, strong yet fragile, soft but tough. We are young people. Join me, the very Reverend Gideon Doche Usabute, as I connect you to the world of young people. It's Why Connect, your new and exciting young people's program, right here on Wesleyan Television. It's Why Connect, connecting youth to Christ. Why Connect? The future is here. See you.
Welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us on the very last part of the state right here on Wesleyan Television. And so earlier we were discussing the Ghana food program, Ghana school feeding program, sorry. And so we're discussing some of the challenges and what we think could be the solutions, but we'll go straight to some of the issues of funding. Ms. Odum, let's start with you. What do we think would be the ideal way of funding this Ghana school feeding program so that the fundings would come periodically, it would come consistently, and it would come right on time?
I think first and foremost, I think we should legislate it.
Okay.
So in terms of social protection, I think Ghana school feeding program is one of the social protection interventions that government is pursuing.
Right.
There's also others like the LEAP, cash transfer and things like that. So let's legislate it. When it is in law, it means that government after government are bound by the fact that this is something that they must resource it. Now, as part of legislation, let's find, where we are going to fundraise from. And so maybe we can say that, 0.this% from our, some of our financial sources, whether it is the revenues that we receive from, from the gold, revenues that come anywhere that we think that there are opportunities, because of course you can be sure that almost all our revenues have been distributed to different places. So let's identify where gaps are, and let's make sure that we can identify the place where money can come from, and dedicated funding. Because if you look at the Ghana School Feeding Program, which is also budget supported by the World Bank, and significant donors, you can see that, clearly it is not sustainable. So we must find, the sources, within our own budgets to be able to, support this. That aside, I think that particularly the area that is also quite disturbing is the availability of, the foodstuffs.
Okay.
So is there any way we can make sure that we are cultivating enough that we'll be able to support these schools? And let government invest in those areas. So for instance, I thought that the Planting for Food and Jobs was a great initiative. However, the way it was managed is why perhaps we are at this point. If we look at it and we think that that initiative is something that we can still focus on, can we dedicate it to the schools so that in terms of the school feeding programs and significant others, that requires such resources, we are able to give that dedication to it. I think that it will be very useful. And let's make sure that for instance, as part of, you know, the ideas or the goals of the feeding school feeding program, where it says that, you know, every community should cultivate its own food and get caterers to buy from the same community. Is it possible that we can thoroughly go into this and see what is feasible and see how we can make sure it happens?
Mr.
Because
for those of us living in some parts of Accra, I mean, the land is already finished. We are done building. How do we get, and we have schools in these communities, so how then do we get to start planting so that these caterers would actually buy from us? How do we intend doing that?
So you heard from the CHAS Secretary General, where he says that there are, you know, there are lots of storage, you know, in Tema. So that will be the opportunity for those in places like that. So I'm saying that, you know, for instance, the Planting for Food initiatives, for instance, we can, those leftovers or those that we have, you know, being produced in a lot more quantity that are shipped to Accra, that are in storage wherever they are. Those could be for the places where, you know, the communities where they are not producing their own food, they can actually, you know, support these schools. So particularly what I am saying is that it is not a one, you know, size fits all approach. Let's thoroughly go into the subject matter. Let's look at, you know, where we can get what and why, and see how this all can come together and make sure that no one is lacking. I think that we need, you know, a national dialogue, you know, to see how this can really work. I think what the measures are right now are quite temporary, and we don't know if it can really fix the problem we have at hand. But let's look more at a permanent way of, you know, doing this and make sure that every, you know, school can get food. And when these children get food, they will stay in school and they will do well.
Thank you. We'll come back to you, and then we'll look at the way forward. I mean, the final way forward for the Ghana School Feeding Program. Doc, let's look at the funding. How can we get sustainable funding where the monies would come in, even where we've not asked for it, because we know that the money is supposed to come at the 15th of every month, and so by the 14th you get an alert, by 15th that it has hit your account, and then the caterers will get to buy their own stuff.
As my brother rightly said, legislating is the only way out. Is the only way out. But I want to react to the fact that what killed the program is buying from where you are, that they should concentrate more purchases on their local communities. It is wrong. The buffer stock system was not properly used in Ghana. The South Africans have a very beautiful model where they don't use cash, but they use value of food stock to exchange for areas. You can't tell me what you have in the forest areas, you can have it in the Sahelian area, like the north. What you get in western region, you might not get them in the north. Yes,
so it should be an exchange thing.
Yes, there should be an exchange program. And the buffer stock was supposed to be the hub around which that exchange will be operating. But they are more or less picking from the area, keeping, and then issuing them to the people who are within the area. So I think the buffer stock system should be properly engineered so that it will cater for real stock exchange kind of thing. So they move what is in a particular area into an area where they don't have that particular food crop.
So with this, we don't need funding?
We need funding. But what I mean is that there's some funding. You see, if this kind of, the buffer stock system is properly engineered and properly working, then the initial funding will just be operating and they recycle the same funding within the system. Because there's some funding released for feeding them every time, although it's inadequate. At least it's something. So if the buffer stock thing is operating effectively, then the funding might be okay, because they will have the system to transport, but it's not the caterers who will be transporting, going to buy from far and then transporting, but it is brought to their doorsteps, and then so picking it will not be a difficult thing.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. Dr. Odum, Mr. Odum, sorry, let's come back to you. What should be the final way forward for Ghana and for those in places where they can make the laws, they can talk to other people, they can have a national dialogue around it?
For me, way forward, I mentioned that let's have a national dialogue. I think that the Ghana school feeding program has struggled a bit, and it has struggled for many reasons, which we have already talked about. I think one of the first things that we need to take out is the politicization of it. Is it possible that we can make sure that, people who are cooking, are just the right people? Can we make sure that we are strengthening the systems that is monitoring, what they are cooking as well? I mean, when you go and ask Ghana School Feeding Program, they'll tell you all these things exist, but how much are we doing it? Can we make sure that, the foodstuffs, are always readily available? If it is not in the community, can we get it elsewhere? Like my colleague panel member said, let's take advantage of the exchanges and make sure that we can get all that we need. Can we make sure that people are getting involved in terms of the monitoring? I think that the class teacher must get involved, the head teacher can get involved, CSOs can get involved, government officials should also get involved in monitoring. And let's always, make sure that we are strengthening the system. Let's also make sure that we can do something about the payment amount. I think that at this point, that amount of money is woefully inadequate and it's not able to contribute. But when you look at the absolute numbers, so for instance, sometime in 2018, the absolute figure of government spending on the Ghana School Feeding Program is about 489 million Ghana cedis. When you look at this absolute figure, it's a lot of money. But in nominal values, talking about 1 cedi 20 pesos, you can see that it's woefully inadequate. If we say we want to do it, let's do it right. If we don't want to do it, then we should stop it, because you don't want a child to be eating just anything, because what you eat is what becomes of you. So I think that it's very critical that we look at all these issues, and then particularly let's keep talking, let's keep discussing how to improve it. I think that that is the only way we can always improve this Ghana School Feeding Program. So a national dialogue will be a great.
Mr. Odum, if government is struggling, should parents step in? Parents who are okay, who are well-to-do. For instance, a typical example is the senior high schools, where parents, Charles has even indicated that if parents could come in to help, I mean, it would go a long way to help these children stay in school. Because if there is food shortage, it means that they won't be able to eat and then sit in the classrooms to learn. So should parents come in?
Exactly the same position that the current president, had on the free senior high school policy. So I think that there should be a whole national dialogue on the whole conversation of either free senior high school or Ghana School Feeding Program. The bottom line is that when you're looking at social protection, and the Ghana School Feeding Program is an example of a social protection intervention. We have a contributory social protection program, and we have a non-contributory. And the situation we have right now is a non-contributory one, which is government says, I want to pay everything, and then the people cook. So if we are at a point where we think that we are really struggling, and we think that parents should come in, then let's have another conversation. Let's see how parents are going to contribute to the process. It could be that as part of the terms fees, there is an amount that the student pays, and that will be supplemented by government.
All right.
Clearly, if we make that decision, we are good to go.
Interesting. Thank you so much, Mr. Odum, for that beautiful submission. Doc, what should be the final way forward?
The final way forward, I think we have made a lot of discussions. And if we have brought out a lot of proposals and suggestions, all put together. I mean, you tease out the best out of a discussion and you get the best way forward. That's always the final.
Would you also support parents coming in to help?
That might create a certain form of imbalance in the system.
Okay.
Yes, that might create, but getting a dedicated funding source is the best.
And how about parents who are well-to-do and they are willing to help?
There are schools where they can take their children to, where you go and pay and they feed them and do everything. So the alternative is still existing. The alternatives are still existing in our country now. So I find it difficult accepting the fact that it should be enshrined in the policy or something that to children, parents who want to assist could assist. Yes, I always say this kind of, especially this system is good because if you use the National Science and Maths quiz, if you look at the kind of schools that are contesting, means that we had brilliant children who were falling out of the system. But for these free education and feeding programs, they are coming up now.
Doc, thank you so much for your time and thank you so much for giving us this particular insight. But we've been speaking with Dr. 𝗟𝗓𝗩𝗘, who is the National Coordinator, Religious Bodies Network on Environment and Climate Change. As well as we've been speaking with Mr. 𝗟𝗓𝗪𝗘, who is a change facilitator and diversity as well as inclusion advocate, and we'll be speaking on the Ghana School Feeding Program. Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of The State. My name is Anita. We promise to hit your screens again with The State on Friday. Do well to enjoy the rest of our programs and enjoy the rest of the week.